My name is Claire Bennett. I was 35 years old, a finance director, and the sole parent of a 2-month-old daughter named Sophie when a highway collision put me in the hospital with a concussion, a fractured wrist, and 2 cracked ribs. But the crash was not the moment I realized my life was built around people I could not depend on. That happened later, when I called my parents from the hospital and asked them to care for Sophie until I could safely return home. My father refused. My brother Evan finally had a Hawaii trip, he told me, and they were not canceling it. So, from my hospital bed, I found a professional newborn caregiver, authorized a stranger to enter my home, and terminated the $4,900 I had been sending my parents every month. I believed I understood what their refusal meant. Then my grandmother walked into my hospital room carrying a red accounting ledger. She told me the money had never been doing what my parents claimed. What she knew turned one terrible night into something much larger. Before I take you back to the highway, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and like this video. If you have ever discovered that someone's promises disappeared the moment you truly needed them, you already understand why this story matters. To understand why that ledger made my stomach turn, I need to take you back to less than an hour before the collision. Nina Patel was standing in my kitchen with Sophie against her shoulder when I picked up my keys. "You could let me get the prescription tomorrow," she said. Nina lived 2 houses away and worked as a pediatric occupational therapist. She understood children, respected routines, and had become one of the few people I trusted completely with my daughter. "I'll be gone 20 minutes. You said that the last time. The pharmacy is 12 minutes away. That still isn't 20 minutes there and back." I looked at Sophie. Her eyes were closed, one tiny hand tucked between her cheek and Nina's shirt. Becoming a mother had been deliberate for me. I had not stumbled into it or assumed other people would carry the weight. I had waited until I was financially secure, arranged my maternity leave carefully, created an emergency fund, and researched everything from infant sleep to future childcare. My parents had known I planned to become a single mother. They had not merely accepted it, they had celebrated it. My father had promised that if an emergency ever happened, I would never have to wonder who would care for Sophie. My mother had said the same thing so many times that I listed them as my primary emergency contacts. That afternoon, the plan felt solid. Nina would stay with Sophie while I collected a prescription. I would return before the next feeding, and the rest of the evening would be ordinary. I placed my hand on Sophie's back and felt the soft rise and fall beneath her pajamas. "Call me if she wakes up." Nina smiled. "Claire, she'll be fine." I believed her. I was several miles from home when traffic slowed. The road was damp, but the rain had stopped. Tires whispered against the pavement, brake lights glowing in long red lines ahead of me. I remember easing off the accelerator. Then came the impact. Metal folded somewhere behind me. My seat belt locked across my chest, the car spun, and the world outside the windshield became wet asphalt, headlights, and the concrete divider. When the car stopped, there was no dramatic silence. Horns sounded. Someone shouted. My engine made a low mechanical clicking noise. For several seconds, I could not understand why my hand hurt or why breathing felt so sharp. Then I thought of Sophie. My phone had fallen beneath the passenger seat. I reached for it, but pain shot from my wrist to my elbow. I tried again and nearly blacked out. A man appeared outside the window and motioned for me to stay still. "My baby," I said. He could not hear me through the glass. The words came out again, louder this time. "My baby is at home." By the time the paramedics reached me, I had repeated Nina's phone number so often that one of them wrote it across the back of his glove. They assured me they would contact her. They told me to keep my head still. They asked my name, the date, and whether I knew where I was. I answered everything correctly, but the same thought kept cutting through every question. Nina had agreed to stay for 20 minutes. I had no idea how long I would be gone. At the hospital, the examination stretched into scans, questions, a wrist splint, and repeated checks of my pupils. Every breath pulled against my ribs. When a nurse finally told me I would remain overnight for observation, I stared at her as if she had misunderstood the problem. I have a 2-month-old baby. I know. I can't stay overnight. With the concussion and your injuries, you cannot safely discharge yourself. She's at home with a friend. The nurse pulled a chair closer. Is there another caregiver you can call? That question should have been easy. My parents lived less than 30 minutes from my house. They were retired or working only limited hours. They had keys, infant supplies, written authorization to obtain medical care for Sophie, and more than one promise that they would come whenever I needed them. I'll call them, I said. Before I could, Nina's name appeared on my screen. The paramedic had reached her. Sophie was safe. Nina had already packed what she thought might be needed if she had to move the baby, but I asked her to stay at my house where everything was familiar. I'm so sorry, I told her. Stop apologizing. How badly are you hurt? They're keeping me overnight. There was a pause. Nina did not complain or make the situation about herself. She simply began identifying what was possible. I can stay for now, she said, but I have my own child to get home to and patients in the morning. If your parents can take over tonight, I'll wait until they arrive. They will. I said it without hesitation. Nina trusted my certainty because I trusted it. I called my mother first. The call went unanswered. I called my father and he answered on the 4th ring. Claire, I've been in an accident. The background noise disappeared. What kind of accident? On the highway. I'm at the hospital. Are you all right? I have a concussion and some fractures. They're keeping me overnight. My mother's voice came from somewhere near him. Where's Sophie? She's at home with Nina. She's safe, but Nina can't stay all night. I need you to go to my house and take care of Sophie until I can arrange something longer term. Silence followed. At first, I assumed they were processing the situation. My parents had cared for Sophie before. They knew where everything was. My father had installed the infant seat base in their car himself. Then he exhaled. Claire, we can't. I shifted in the hospital bed, and pain tightened beneath my ribs. What do you mean? We're leaving for the airport early tomorrow. I had forgotten about Hawaii. Evan had spent months talking about the trip. My parents had described it as an opportunity he deserved after several difficult years. They were traveling with him, paying for meals, upgrading accommodations, and treating the vacation like proof that his life was finally moving forward. I'm not asking you to cancel the whole trip, I said. I need someone with Sophie tonight. You can miss one flight and take another after we arrange care. My father's voice hardened. Your brother finally has a Hawaii trip. We're not canceling it. I looked toward the door, half expecting the nurse to return and tell me I had misheard him. Dad, I'm in the hospital. And Sophie is safe with Nina. Nina cannot stay. She is helping until you get there. My mother spoke more loudly, so I could hear her. If this had happened any other week, of course we would come. It didn't happen another week. I know, sweetheart, we feel terrible. Feeling terrible required nothing from them. I kept my voice level because that was what I had always done when my family made an unreasonable situation sound reasonable. I need help for one night, maybe 2 days while I recover enough to hold her safely. You both promised you would be my emergency caregivers. We did not promise to abandon every commitment, my father said. This is an emergency. And we have already paid for this trip. I closed my eyes. My head throbbed against the pillow. The wrist splint felt heavy. Somewhere down the hall, a machine chimed twice before falling silent. My father continued. You arrange complicated things for a living. You're good at this. Make some calls. That sentence was so familiar that, for a moment, it almost worked. Claire could handle it. Claire would find a solution. Claire did not need what everyone else needed. My mother asked whether Sophie had enough formula and diapers. It was the kind of practical question she could later remember as evidence that she had cared. She has everything except the grandparents who promised to come. Claire, my father warned. No, I understand. I ended the call. My thumb remained over the darkened screen. I did not cry. I did not throw the phone or call him back and demand an explanation that would somehow turn him into another person. I simply felt something inside me become quiet. For most of my life, being the dependable child had been treated as a compliment. When something broke, I fixed it. When plans failed, I adjusted. When Evan needed another chance, I was expected to understand. My parents spoke about his potential as if it were an investment that would eventually reward everyone. My stability was treated differently. Because I had a career and savings, any sacrifice I made appeared painless from the outside. That was how the $4,900 transfers began. 22 months earlier, my father had called to tell me retirement had become more difficult than expected. The mortgage was supposedly consuming most of their income. Their medical coverage was allegedly inadequate. Utilities and essential expenses were rising. He did not ask for a random amount. He presented $4,900 as the exact monthly difference between stability and losing everything. At work, I would never have approved an expense without examining the supporting records. But this was my family, and my father made verification sound like humiliation. He said he could send me bills if I needed proof, then spoke about how painful it was for a parent to be audited by his own daughter. I told him that would not be necessary. The first transfer left my account the following morning. After that, it became automatic. Every month, $4,900 moved into my parents' joint account under a transaction I labeled *family support ***. 22 payments. $107,800. I knew the total because numbers stayed with me. What I refused to calculate was the emotional cost of continuing. My parents thanked me in ways that kept the arrangement vague. My mother sometimes said I was saving their home. My father described the money as proof that successful families protected one another. Evan knew I helped them, but no one discussed the amount around him. Whenever my father paid one of Evan's expenses, he described it as temporary support from his retirement income. I accepted that explanation, because questioning it would have forced a confrontation I had spent my life avoiding. When I became pregnant with Sophie, my parents' promises became more specific. They volunteered to keep infant supplies at their house. They accepted emergency authorization. My mother announced to friends that Sophie would have grandparents close enough to reach her at any hour. My father told me I was not raising a child alone. I was raising her with a family behind me. Even Grandma Evelyn had once tried to warn me about the difference between what my father said and what he did. I had not listened. By then, my father had spent years describing her as intrusive. If she asked financial questions, he called it control. If she challenged the way Evan was protected, he said she was creating division between siblings. I loved my grandmother, but I kept her at a careful distance because I believed maintaining peace was a form of loyalty. Lying in that hospital bed, I finally understood what peace had required from me. I called Nina again. My parents aren't coming. She was silent for less than a second. All right, then we need another plan. No lecture, no disbelief, no attempt to make me defend them. The nurse connected me with a hospital support worker who sent information for an agency providing vetted newborn care. Nina remained with Sophie while I made calls. The first agency had no overnight availability. The second could send someone the following afternoon, which was too late. The third connected me with Marisol Vega. Marisol did not offer reassurance before asking questions. She wanted Sophie's age, the expected duration, the access arrangements, and confirmation that another responsible adult would remain at the house until she arrived. She explained her credentials, the agency's background check process, and the temporary authorization I needed to sign electronically. Her precision calmed me more than sympathy would have. Nina reviewed the agency information from my house. The hospital support worker verified the contact. I completed the authorization with one functioning hand and paid for immediate coverage. When I called Nina again, I gave her Marisol's expected arrival information. I'll stay until she's inside and settled, Nina said. You don't have to. I know. That is why this is help, Claire, because I'm choosing what I can actually do. I pressed my lips together until the tightness in my throat eased. Thank you. Sophie is fine. Take care of yourself long enough to come home to her. After the call ended, I opened my banking application. The screen blurred briefly, and I waited for my vision to settle. Then I selected recurring payments. Family support, $4,900. There were 22 completed transfers beneath it. The next one was already scheduled. My finger hovered over the cancellation option. I imagined my mother calling in tears. I imagined my father accusing me of using money as punishment. I imagined Evan hearing some version in which I had abandoned 2 retired parents over one missed favor. Then I pictured Sophie 10 or 15 years from now. I pictured teaching her that love meant accepting lies because confronting them might upset someone. I pictured her learning that the most responsible person should always absorb the deepest injury. The thought frightened me more than being alone. I selected cancel, recurring payment, ***. A confirmation window appeared. I read it twice. Then I pressed *confirm ***. Nothing dramatic happened. No alarm sounded. No one entered the room to tell me whether I had made the right decision. The transaction simply disappeared from my scheduled payments. My parents did not yet know. I still did not know that the mortgage I believed I was helping pay no longer existed. I did not know their medical coverage had never created the shortfall they described. I did not know where most of my money had actually gone. I only knew that 2 people who had promised to come during an emergency had chosen not to come. That was enough. Nina called once Marisol arrived. She showed me Sophie sleeping safely in her bassinet and confirmed that the agency credentials matched. For the first time since the collision, I allowed my body to rest against the mattress. Then Nina asked a question. "Is there anyone you want me to call for you?" I almost said no. That answer had become automatic. Instead, I thought of Grandma Evelyn. "Call my grandmother," I said. "Tell her I'm at the hospital, ask her to come if she can." A little later that night, footsteps stopped outside my room. The door opened. Grandma Evelyn entered wearing a plain gray coat, her silver hair pinned back neatly. She was 81, but there was nothing fragile about the way she looked at me. Her eyes moved from the bruising near my temple to the splint around my wrist. Then she lifted the object she was carrying. It was a red accounting ledger, worn at the corners and secured with an elastic band. She placed it on the rolling table beside my bed and rested one hand over the cover. "Before you send your parents another cent," she said, "you need to know what that money has really been paying for." For a moment, I could only stare at her. "What do you mean?" Grandma Evelyn pulled the elastic band from the ledger and opened it across the rolling table. "Tell me exactly what Richard said your monthly payments covered." She almost never called my father Dad when speaking to me. She used his name with the precision of someone separating the man he had become from the son she had raised. "The mortgage," I said. "Their medical coverage, utilities, basic expenses. He said they were almost $5,000 short every month." Grandma's expression changed. Not into surprise. Into recognition. "Claire, there has not been a mortgage payment on that house in 7 years." A dull pressure moved through my chest. "That isn't possible. I paid the remaining balance myself." I searched her face for uncertainty. There was none. "When?" 7 years ago. Your parents owned that house outright." My first instinct was to protect them. Maybe my father had taken another loan against the property. Maybe the payment had changed. Maybe Grandma's information was outdated. He told me they were at risk of losing it. They are not. What about their medical insurance? Your father has retiree coverage. Your mother is included. Their supplemental expenses are nowhere near what he described to you. The room felt too small. I shifted upright, but pain caught beneath my ribs and forced me back. Grandma reached toward me, then stopped before touching my arm. Slowly. "How do you know all this?" "Because Janet asked me to help reconcile their accounts." My mother had always been comfortable asking Grandma for practical help. Evelyn had spent most of her adult life keeping financial records. Numbers did not intimidate her, and neither did the uncomfortable explanations attached to them. She believed the bank had duplicated several charges, Grandma continued. It had not, but while I was reviewing the statements, I saw regular deposits from you. My mouth went dry. You knew. I knew money was coming from your account. I did not know what your father had told you it was for. What did he tell you? That you understood where it was going, that you had agreed to help the family. Technically, every word was true. I had agreed to help. I had simply been given a different definition of the family and a different description of the need. Grandma turned several pages. Dates and figures filled each line in her neat handwriting. Small tabs marked groups of copied statements beneath the ledger's back cover. I questioned him about the payments leaving the account, she said. He told me it was none of my business. Payments to whom? She removed the first statement and placed it in front of me. Several incoming deposits were highlighted. Each one matched the date and amount of my automatic transfers. Beneath them were outgoing payments. Some went directly to Evan. Others covered accounts bearing his name. There were vehicle expenses, credit balances, and transfers connected to the business ventures my parents had always described as opportunities. I followed the transactions with my finger. This can't all be for him. It is not all for him. Your parents used some for their own travel and discretionary expenses, but a substantial amount went to your brother. I looked at the next statement. Then the next. The same pattern appeared repeatedly. My transfer entered the account. Within days, portions of it left for Evan. Why didn't you tell me? Grandma looked toward the dark hospital window. I should have. That isn't an answer. No, it is not. Her voice remained steady, but regret had entered it. Your father said you knew. When I questioned the arrangement, he accused me of interfering between his children. He told Janet to stop bringing me their records. After that, they began describing me as controlling whenever I raised the subject. I remembered my father's warnings. Grandma was getting older. Grandma could be suspicious. Grandma did not understand how modern families handled money. He had never asked me to stop loving her. He had simply made listening to her feel disloyal. I believed him, I said. I know. Nina's call had changed Evelyn's understanding. She knew my parents had refused to care for Sophie during a medical emergency. She knew they were still accepting my money. That combination had been enough to convince her that whatever my father claimed, I did not understand the truth. Grandma turned to a more recent group of records. What is this? I asked. A payment to the company that arranged their Hawaii package. I examined the date. My most recent transfer